Welcome to Get to Know with me, Morgan Williams. I've been in the creative industry for over a decade and meet people in different roles every day. But here's my secret. I don't always know what it is they actually do. So here I am getting to know. Each week, I sit down with industry insiders, learning what it is they actually do all day long. Whether you're trying to break into the industry, feeling a little bit lost, or just plain curious, Get to Know is here to dish out creative career insights and advice. So let's dive right into this episode. Before we start this episode, I have something really exciting to announce. We're throwing our first ever networking event to celebrate the end of season 1 of this podcast. If you've enjoyed any of the episodes, join me and a selection of my guests at Fujifilm House of Photography in London on September 19th for a fun evening of connecting with fellow creatives. Whether you're an industry veteran or just starting out, this event is open to all and the perfect chance to expand your network. Don't miss out, grab your free ticket on Eventbrite, link in bio. This week, I get to know Rob Daniels, a freelance content creator specialising in short-form video. Rob and I connected on LinkedIn, which shows the importance of building a personal brand on socials as a freelancer. Today, we discuss the differences between short-form and long-form video, what a content creator does altogether, how Rob started out on YouTube, and the dreaded algorithm. If you're interested in a career in social media and content creation, this is the episode for you. Hey Rob, thanks for joining me today. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thanks. So I'd love to start this episode off with an introduction of yourself and tell us what it is that you do.
So I'm Rob. I'm 25 years old, so I've kind of been in the industry for maybe 5 years professionally. I'd class myself as a hybrid creative person, focusing on video content, whether that's creating it, editing them, coming up with ideas for videos, and I just sort of do that freelance at the moment, showing off my skills for other brands and small businesses here and there.
Awesome. So can you tell us a little bit more about the actual content that you make? Like you've said video, but can we dig in a bit more? What types of video is it that you do?
Yeah, so my speciality is definitely short form content for TikTok and Instagram, and definitely focusing on organic content rather than putting any sort of money behind it. So jumping on trends that might work for a brand, or just sort of coming up with fun ideas that they can do that doesn't necessarily sell the product, but it drives people to want to maybe buy from them in the future if they do need whatever product that is. So just those fun short videos that people scroll by constantly.
It's more about the personality of the brand then.
Yeah. So just sort of showing off the brand more than just come and buy this. It's showing off a fun side of them, or depending on what the brand is, the serious side of them. And yeah, just acting like you're one of the audience members and you're sort of friends with them in a way, and
yeah,
not too focused on being salesy.
So how does that work? So for instance, can we talk through a brand that you've worked with? Do they reach out to you or do you reach out to them? And then how do they brief you on what needs to be done, or is it a really collaborative thing?
Yes, being freelance, it's a mixture of me trying to reach out to people, but also people get in touch with me if they've seen me on LinkedIn or something. Like last week specifically, someone did message me on LinkedIn. It was out of nowhere, I'm not connected to them or anything, and it was just sort of asking if I'm free at the moment. And she explained that the work, her sort of company is working with a brand, and they're just looking for sort of TikTok content. So it was just sort of a chat about what I can bring to them. They explained they're after sort of not the salesy content, and it's more those fun little snippets.
Yeah.
So obviously, because I've got experience with that, I could show her that, send my portfolio and stuff. So it was kind of she was coming to me, but I was sort of selling myself as well. Whereas other sort of clients that I've got in the past, they've just sort of come because they've posted on LinkedIn and I've messaged them, rather than them coming to me. Obviously, there's pros and cons of different ways that you can do it. There's so many different like platforms that you can reach people on, whether you go directly to a business on TikTok or message a recruiter or whoever. And a lot of the time, I think these brands have an idea of what they want, but obviously, if they've never been on TikTok, it's hard for them to know exactly what they want. Because they might want to try something new that they've never done before. So they kind of explain that. I've worked with a few that haven't had any sort of experience with that style video, whereas a few have done it in the past and they're just not stuck at it. So they're looking for sort of someone to come in to keep it going a bit.
How do they, I guess, tell you what the personality of the brand should be if they've never done those videos before?
Yeah. So it is a tough one because it's sort of down to me to research it as well as them to like let me know.
Okay.
A lot of the time, which people might not know, is if you join an agent or want to join an agency or you're doing things freelance, depending on the company, they might want you to do a task beforehand just to show off your skills rather than giving you a job or a contract straight away, because obviously it might not be what they're exactly looking for. So I've had to do quite a lot of tasks. Just it might be like an agency and they've given me a fake brand and they're saying, we want you to come up with 2 video ideas and film them and edit them about our new product that we're selling or something. So you do that to just sort of show off your style to them, and then if they like it, obviously you'll go ahead with sort of the contract or something. But in terms of
sorry, I was just going to say, is that what they call like when you bid for a job?
Kind of. So like it does sometimes feel that way because in my head I know that they've probably got in touch with other people who are maybe doing another similar task. So I think in the back of my mind I'm always like, there's other people that I'm kind of up against, and it is kind of pitching me as a person, but also my skills all in one. And obviously there's different ways as well with the tasks that they set. Sometimes it might be you have to actually present it to them. Sometimes it's you just send them the file and they can like look at it themselves. So I've had to do it in person and on like Zoom and Google Meets before. So I've had different sort of environments where I've had to do it. And back to sort of what the main question was about the tone of voice and the personality of the brand. A lot of the time they do have like their own guidelines and they can always send that to you. Sometimes though they do like you to research it yourself and do what you think their personality is. Because some of them, if they are only just starting on social media, they want to know if their personality is even clear anyway, because sometimes obviously different platforms they might have a different personality. They might not even have one, and it might be all over the place. So I think sometimes they like seeing an outside point of view, because like if I can see a clear personality, that obviously is good for them, but also means I understand it more. Whereas if the personality isn't really there, it's sort of it is helpful for them because then they know, okay, maybe we need to sort of pivot to a different sort of strategy. But obviously it means I can kind of give them ideas on what it could be.
Yeah.
So either way, it's like helpful for both like parties, I guess.
How did you actually get into the industry?
Yeah, so I was actually thinking about this the other day because it is such a crazy thing that like one decision makes your sort of life trajectory change.
Yeah.
So back when I was like in my early teens, that's when I was sort of in that mindset of watching YouTubers from all over the world, seeing them get like 30 million views here and there. And for some reason that just sort of clicked in me. I was like, I want to be able to do that. I want to just make videos, even though I'd never really done that before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think after a couple of years, in 2015, that's when I decided, okay, I'm just going to make a channel. I was 15 at the time. And yeah, so I made a channel. It was a very, like, looking back now, because obviously they're all private now, but I sometimes look back at them just to see what I was like. And the quality obviously was terrible, because
Yeah.
I didn't really know what I was doing. I think I was filming it on like an iPad, like one of the first generation iPads, and editing it on the iMovie and stuff. And yeah, so obviously when you start making YouTube videos, other platforms pop up that you're aware of. So
Yeah.
Instagram, Musical.ly at the time. So I was already just then posting on there, and just being that stereotypical sort of creator that posts on YouTube, pictures on Instagram, random videos on like Musical.ly and stuff. I was a bit too late for Vine, which I'm kind of upset about, because we
Oh.
all know how well people did from that. And then when I went to university, I actually did TV and radio production, so it's kind of similar.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously it's not social media. It was like the traditional side of it. And in like sort of my final years there, I did do sort of TV related jobs, where I was like a runner on Britain's Got Talent, The Voice, and a few other shows here and there. But it was only for like a weekend or a week at a time. It wasn't really like, you work on it for the whole series. So in my head, I was always like, is that my passion? Do I want to be in the TV industry for the rest of my life? I was always thinking about social media. I was still creating my own content in my spare time. So it was clear that there was probably more passion in that. And yeah, so I did start thinking, should I do social media for TV shows? Because obviously that started to pick up in popularity. But opportunities didn't really come up for me personally. So then that's when I was like, okay, I'll just start looking for jobs in social media. So one of the first sort of roles I got was at an SEO agency, which I'd never done anything to do with like Google searches or anything. So I was there for 6 months, but I learned so much in general just about that side of things, which obviously just gave me a bit more confidence as a well-rounded sort of creator.
Yeah, I bet. I feel like SEO is like one of the major things that you kind of need to know about, isn't it?
Yeah, and obviously, like I learned that side of things, but then it was also like the blog writing, which I'd never really done that. So it did give me like sort of an eye opener to that side of sort of technology and social media. So yeah, after 6 months, I left there because it was only like a 6 month placement anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then I joined this. It was a relatively small company that it sold like bakery products online, and they went live on Facebook 3 times a week, sort of showing off their products and stuff.
Oh, cool.
So that was quite a fun one, because I was mainly more on the graphics side of things. So I was using like Photoshop, which again I've never used before. So it was an opportunity for me to expand my skills on that side of it, and have a better understanding of graphic in general. And it meant that in the future, if I ever come across a graphic designer, I'd understand more about what they might
Yeah.
be able to do,
Yeah.
and like the possibilities. And I did sort of vision mix when they went live on Facebook, just making sure it was all running smoothly. And I think, again, it was maybe like just under a year that I was there. And then I joined an agency in Manchester. And that kind of came along because, so a recruiter actually messaged me. The job I don't think it was actually advertised properly anywhere. I didn't see it anyway. And this agency, they had just got a new client that they wanted to sort of used TikTok to help promote, but they didn't really have anyone specialised in that at the time. But luckily, because I'd been doing it like myself, I'd grown like quite a big following on my account at the time. So luckily, I had that in like sort of my back pocket, I guess, where I didn't necessarily have that professional experience to make TikToks for brands, but because I'd done it for myself, I think that sort of gave them a bit of an idea that I probably understand the platform more than at the company. So I had to do like obviously a task for them, and like it was something that was the first time that I've had to do a task for an agency, and that sort of gave me a bit more confidence because obviously I got like the job, so I knew that okay, they must like appreciate what I can do and what I bring to the table. So yeah, and then for a year and a half, the main thing that I did there was like the TikTok for different sort of well-known brands in the UK, and then that led me to now being freelance.
Can you name a couple of the brands that you did work on?
So I can. The main one was Specsavers, but then
I've seen a couple of those. They're really good.
yeah. Honestly, like I had like a great time doing all of that. Like a lot of younger people now probably don't think that you could spend 90% of your work life making TikToks for a company. Like, it's crazy that these days that's such a common thing now, and I think a lot of brands don't, or agencies might not understand that you need to have that spare time to be able to do it, because in like the sort of the early days at that agency, I was kind of on a bunch of different things in general, like whether that's coming up with ideas for Facebook for other brands or helping run like the Twitter account and stuff. So I was kind of doing a bunch of different things, as well as going on different shoots out and about. So it was sometimes quite hard for me to find that perfect balance with making TikTok videos because that was sort of my main thing at the time. And yeah, so eventually it did lead to being the majority of my time being spent on that, and that was sort of a very positive thing because it led to an increased like number of views and followers, so it clearly like paid off in the end.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like you said, a lot of people probably look at social media and just think it's an easy job because, I mean, this is, a sweeping statement, but like everyone's got social media. Everyone can post something on social media, but it doesn't mean it's going to be any good. And it's not like necessarily going to perform well or, get the views or, get whatever the purpose of that piece of content was. Because it's for businesses, the purpose isn't always to actually sell a product either, is it? It's like, I don't know, clicks to the website and just brand awareness and stuff like that. So when you're spending your full time on an account on TikTok, how do you kind of do you mix it up between the different like end goals, or the word's gone out of my head of what like you call that, but do you mix it up between that? Is that coming from you or is that coming from the business? Is it like targeted? How does it work?
So in my experience, my role was mainly those organic, trend-led type of videos. When there was like more campaign-led stuff, I might be involved here and there, but that wasn't sort of. I didn't post those ones. I wasn't aware of how the edit was for them. Sometimes I didn't even sort of know it was really happening until I saw it on the TikTok page.
Right.
I just wasn't really. I didn't need to be part of it. So like it's one of those things where I was on like I'll keep Specsavers as an example. I was on that account like every day, constantly looking at it. So I knew like within, I don't know, 10 minutes when a video was posted. Obviously, the majority of the time it was me posting them, so obviously I'm aware of that. But when there was campaign stuff, I'd see it straight away anyway, just because that was like my job, I guess. And yeah, so I wasn't necessarily part of every single part of TikTok.
Right.
But I think the time that the things that I was doing was sort of it made up the majority of it. So
Yeah.
all of those like entertaining videos, they were sort of the majority of the type of video we were posting. So I think, let's say in 1 year, 90% of the videos or 80% of the videos would have been what I've been sort of aware of and I'm making. So the majority of it was obviously me sort of doing that or coming up with ideas, and if I was off, someone else would make them and stuff. So yeah, it is a tough one because in my head, I was sort of not. I hate saying this, but I did feel like I was running TikTok for them.
Yeah.
But obviously, there's so many other people doing other parts of it that lead up to a video being posted. So, like, whether that's them signing off videos that I've made or ideas for me to make them, there was quite a lot of people involved with the process. It was
Can we
just
talk through that process a little bit more then? So, is it you coming up with the ideas and then them signing them off and then it getting posted? Because I spoke to I had a journalist on this actually. She works for Heat and Close magazine. She said a lot of their content's quite reactive, and I guess like trend-led social media posts, you do kind of need to be reactive as well. So, what's the general process look like?
yeah. So obviously, you mentioned about reactive content. So every now and again, there would be something maybe in the news or in pop culture that we could jump on. Obviously, that probably took priority over any ideas we did have if they weren't to do with pop culture. So let's say there was something in the news at 9 a.m. this morning. We would have like been aware of that because there's maybe 5 or 6 of us that are constantly looking at social media and the news, just seeing what's happening. So we'd always be aware of it quite fast anyway. And a lot of the time it was internally at the agency we would think about, what is it even a perfect idea for us? Is it something we should be involved in, or maybe we should leave it for like different reasons? So a lot of the time we would come up with the idea in the agency, and if it got signed off within the agency, we would message like the client about that. Whether that's with a version of the video, so it's easier for them to see it, or whether it's just a description of what the video would be. It all depends on how long it would take to put a video together, because obviously there's no point putting an hour of your time into a video if they might say no anyway. So a lot of the time it was easier to just sort of give a brief description. And if they like the sound of it, then you can make the video and you can then show them that.
Is that all quite quick as well, like the sign-offs?
So luckily, it really was. Like, looking back on it, I think at the time sometimes it felt slow just because it was like a 10-second video and I could make it and post it within 10 minutes. So it's like, and I knew that it would probably do well, or I know that they're going to say yes to it, so I may as well just post it. But obviously I couldn't do that. But luckily they were, like, client were very fast at coming back in like WhatsApp group chats. It usually within an hour, definitely they would have at least said maybe try this, or yeah, go for it, or a no.
Okay, cool.
So it was definitely relatively quick, but I do think that, and this is probably the same at so many different agencies, there can sometimes be too many people involved for like, in my opinion, no reason really. Like, I understand there has to be some sort of management in there, but because I was only a junior at the time, so I knew that it couldn't just be me deciding. But I think sometimes it was way too many people for a 15-second video that has that even if it doesn't do well, people won't remember it the next day. So it was
Yeah,
kind of
you know,
like,
I feel like that's probably just spread across the board of all sort of
yeah,
creative roles, isn't it? Especially when you're in a company, like you're not a freelance. I'm trying to say you're a full-time member of a
yeah,
company. There's a lot of kind of levels to get it signed off with.
mm,
So yeah, I get it. That's why I was asking you about how long it takes to get that approval, because
yeah.
for us it could take like weeks to get that signed off. So I'm quite surprised they come back to you so quickly.
I think it does also depend on, like, if it was a campaign, if it's not necessarily got a deadline,
Yeah.
that probably would that, and I know that it has taken a lot longer with, like, if they don't like the edit, changing it slightly or something. Whereas when it was at least pop culture moments, I think luckily they understood that it really did have to be sort of within an hour of like the news or something. Because obviously
Yeah.
on Twitter we luckily we didn't have to really get sign off as much for that. So it was a lot easier to just reply to a viral tweet or tweet about a topic. Whereas
Mhm.
I think because this was like a video, I think they probably thought it was more serious. I guess with it's not just text; it's like you have to make sure the sort of personality and the vibe is there, um, rather than just sort of posting any random video.
Yeah.
So it
That's
definitely,
interesting that they treat them differently, because I feel like I see a lot of Twitter posts getting reshared because someone's been a bit sassy to someone else, but like, people love it, like the
yeah,
whole M&S Aldi thing that
mm.
happened whenever that happened. But
I think as well they'd had a lot more time with Twitter, so that trust was built up.
okay. Okay.
Whereas with TikTok, that primarily started when I had already joined, so
Yeah.
it was kind of like still fairly new to them.
Hmm.
Luckily, towards like the end of my time there, it was picking up with views and success. So I think
Yeah.
that sort of trust was being built up. So
What
I'm not sure how it runs now.
what year were you with them?
Um, March 2022
Okay.
to September 2023.
Yeah, so I guess it's still, I think we all forget that Twitter is actually still quite a new app, because I mean it only started really gaining popularity during like COVID lockdowns,
Yeah,
really.
yeah,
So
and a
that's
lot of
not that soon after
yeah,
that.
yeah, because that's always a thing as well. That if if I was older when I was on Musically,
Hmm.
I think I would have been able to go more to brands about it and stuff then. But when I was using Musically, I was like 18, so I was going off to university and stuff, and I I don't think brands were even aware of it as an app, or
Yeah,
if they were
yeah.
aware of it, they just probably thought, oh, it will pass over within a year, so there's no point
And
jumping.
I feel like that's the same with TikTok to an extent
Yeah,
now. I feel like there's a lot of businesses that don't really utilize their TikTok properly,
yeah,
or
yeah,
they've only joined it this year.
yeah, and I always find that so fascinating because there's so many brands in there with like 5 million plus followers, and
Hmm.
it's companies that beforehand no one probably had heard of them and stuff. So it's clear that TikTok has helped with getting them out there into pop culture, and now they're a business that like I don't know half the users might know or be aware of because of the videos that they've posted on.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. There's a lot of brands that I only know because of TikTok,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
which is amazing. I think that's incredible. Like, we're obviously of the age where we kind of remember pre all social media, and we'd only see it on TV ads and billboards.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
so I think it's a completely different landscape now, and it's a really exciting one. How did you, I guess, build up all your knowledge of the different social media platforms? Because you've kind of got to be an expert in all of them, don't you?
Yeah, yeah. So it's one of those things where I think, luckily, I'm the age where I grew up with. Well, I didn't grow up with social media. It kind of came about when I was in my teenage years.
Mhm.
So I think I'm that. Luckily, I'm like that sort of generation where I understand social media. So if a new platform came up, it will probably have the same basics as every other platform. It just might be sort of ever so slightly different. So I think I'm just very sort of curious about new features that come out, or a new platform might come out, and I may as well just make an account on it just to see what it's like. It doesn't mean that I'm ever going to use it or anything. It's just to be aware of what it's like. Like I've never really used like Pinterest before, but one of a client that I used to have, they used that, so it was like a time for me to start understanding it. So it's one of those things where, and I think it sounds like so simple, but I think I've just got the common sense to understand the different platforms.
I think that's an important thing that you said, though. They all kind of have the same starting point, the same base. So as long as you kind of understand in simple terms, like the algorithm and, you know, what each app wants from you, then I guess you can make it work for you. I think probably the question on everyone's lips, which you might know the answer to because you are obviously so involved with TikTok, but like, how much should you post?
Yeah, so it's such a strange thing, because I see so many like experts on TikTok saying, "Oh, these are the times you should post. These are the days you should post." And I think again it comes down to sort of a bit of common sense, but also depending on what your brand is, it can obviously change. Because obviously, if you're a brand in the UK, there's probably no point posting at like 3 a.m. So you'd naturally just post it in like sort of the afternoon and the evening, because you know that's when people are going to be on the phone, if that's like your target audience. But I also think if you are, like, there's certain brands that do post quite rarely, but that's because they might be like a really luxurious one and they want to keep that like sort of personality of not being for everyone and that exclusivity. So it does depend on your brand as well. But in the past, like in my personal sort of content creation, I've posted maybe like 5 in one day, or 2 the next day, maybe like left it a week in between, and I've never really noticed a huge correlation with like this video did amazingly well because I posted it at this time. I do personally usually post in like the evening just because I know people are on the phones. But I've posted things like in the morning before, and it's done either just as well as an evening post, or like better. So I think it's just one of those things where just test it and learn, really, which it's such a common phrase in like the industry. But it is true when you think about it. If you like, no one will genuinely care if they post a video at 6 p.m. and it doesn't do well. Like, no, literally, I don't think any the only people that would care are the people in like the brand or the agency. They're literally the only people. Anyone watching it wouldn't think, "Oh my god, it's got 300 likes. There's no way that I'm going to ever buy from this brand." So yeah, it's just one of those things where over time, I think you learn what sort of your audience seems to engage with, whether that's a weekly video or a daily update video, or whatever it might be. But I always say it's got to be consistent. But I think it gets to the point where you should be focusing then on quality rather than sort of just being consistent, because at one point in when I was at the agency, there was that feeling of, oh, I've got to think of an idea because we've been told to post like 5 a week. Where when we started to sort of step back and be like, let's just post a couple a week, or if an idea is perfect for us, post it then. And that's when we started to see the benefits of it, rather than just putting out a random video that might not necessarily be worth it just because you think you have to get something out there. I think,
well, that was going to be my next question. Like, how do you keep the constant flow of ideas for what to post?
Yeah, so it always depends on like what the client or brand would actually want. Because some of them might want 5 a week, like I said, but some of them might only want sort of one every once a week. So it does obviously depend on that. But when I was at the agency, it was a bit like, luckily there was quite a lot of people that were working on the account. So it was like a lot of people had ideas, or they saw something on TikTok that I might not have seen, because obviously everyone's like pages are different. And luckily we did, again, at the time, there was a team that would sort of be more focused in like sort of the analytics side of TikTok or Facebook or whatever. So sometimes they might have seen like a hashtag that seems to be gaining popularity, so they would maybe like let me know or someone else. So there was always people coming up with like ideas here and there. Sometimes the client might have seen something themselves in like the news or in an article that they might want to focus on. So obviously we could then use that to come up with an idea. Every now and again, there was times when I was like, I literally can't think of any ideas. So like clearly something has to change or whatever. And that was probably when it was posting 5 a week, and you couldn't really keep that up if there's no ideas there, or there's no new trends that are worth jumping on. I think that was probably when it was worse, because in like your spare time, you'd think about it. Like you'd think, okay, tomorrow I'm going to have to post a TikTok, so I may as well start thinking about it now and be ready for it tomorrow. But I think because I've spent so long in my life really on social media, I've always been aware of trends that come and go. Because like there's been some trends in the past like couple of years that were around 4 or 5 years ago. So there's always like some trends that will never sort of leave, which you can always sort of fall back on if you are at that stage where you can't think of a thing. But yeah, luckily at the agency there was quite a lot of people supporting me, I guess.
Yeah. Let's talk about agency life then. What is a typical day in the life of a content producer in an agency like?
We did have like a meeting pretty much every morning where we might sort of speak about things that might have happened in the news, or just in general, when you arrive at work, you start speaking maybe about different topics from the evening before or something. So there was always like the conversations about, oh, this is in the news at the moment, maybe we could do something for it. If like the evening before I've seen 3 trends that might be worthy, I would start just making them, putting an idea in our group chats, like, do you reckon this is a good idea? And if they thought it was, then I'd go ahead with making it. But then there was also coming up with Facebook ideas for another client. Luckily there was like people in charge of our time, so they like booked us on different things, so it wasn't necessarily you just decide what you want to do all day. Luckily it was like, okay, this morning we want you to work on this, and this afternoon maybe focus more on Facebook. A lot of the days were different, but they were also similar at the same time. It might, in the morning, it might be TikTok focused, but it might be for another client as well. So it was kind of different, but again, focusing on TikTok. Every now and again, I'd go out on a shoot, whether that's filming Vox Pops in public, or going to like another part of the country to like maybe film like TikToks, but as well as a whole crew being there filming the campaign videos. So there was a lot of like work around sort of the main role, which was obviously TikTok creation. And I think I did like the variety, because obviously a lot of the time when you join an agency, you want that you're not just working in house, so you want that variety. And I think that's what I did enjoy the most, just because every so often, if you are working on the same thing for 3 or 4 weeks, it can be a bit like, I want to do a bit something else at least. But I think
it could become a bit monotonous, I guess.
yeah, and I think if you are at an agency and you're working on the same sort of client, you may as well be in house there. and it saves so much of your time and the people involved. Whereas, luckily, maybe like once a week or something, I would be on maybe a different client or at least a different platform for the same client. So it is slightly different.
How many clients would you get at a time?
Within a month, I'd work across like 3.
Okay.
But Specsavers was the main sort of one that 80% of the time was going to. But I would go on like other shoots here and there for other clients, and I think towards the end of my time there, luckily they had some more sort of client wins, so it was starting to pick up with different clients and stuff. So that was obviously a positive. And I think it was probably quite a good number, because if you're working on 10 clients, you're probably not really putting as much time and effort into it, because your mind is constantly thinking about the other 9. So I think like having 5 or less is probably quite a good balance between, not being too burnt out at one client. The next day you might be able to like refresh your mind because you're thinking of something totally different than sort of glasses or something. So yeah, I think it's nice having that balance.
Cool. You've mentioned a couple of things which maybe listeners won't know exactly what that means. So I wanted to just to do maybe like a quick fire explanation. So Vox Pop, what is that?
So when you go out into the street and there's a presenter asking people questions, they're very popular on TikTok. Yeah, it's just those sort of questions that you might ask members of the public, whether it's about sport or politics, but most of the time it is those light-hearted questions.
Okay, cool. And then organic media as well.
Organic to me is you'll never have to put money behind it, and I might be biased, but I personally think it's the best type of social, just because you're not losing any money and you could get a very good gain back from it. So it might just be those trend-led entertaining videos where you're getting involved with an inside joke on TikTok, and because you're doing that, it does well anyway, so you don't have to put any money behind it, and that money can go to sort of other parts of social.
And then short form video as well.
Yeah, so obviously this is more of a recent term, I think, because a lot of people are known for like YouTube, which I'd say is more long form, whether that's like 20-minute videos. These days people are posting like hour-long videos on YouTube. Whereas short form to me is those portrait style videos that are common on TikTok or Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts now, where they might be 10 seconds to 45 seconds.
What do you think of TikTok testing like the hour-long long form content on their platform? Do you think that's going to take off?
I think it could, only because obviously all the platforms steal from each other all the time. YouTube obviously have YouTube Shorts now, which are doing insanely well. And obviously that's because they saw the success from TikTok. And I definitely do think those longer videos will do well, because someone posted a series a few months ago, which I actually still haven't watched. And I think it was about her husband, maybe cheating on her or something. And I think from the top of my head, there was so many different parts of it, which were 10 minutes long. And people were watching all of them. So they probably spent 30 minutes to an hour just watching them anyway.
Yeah.
So I definitely think it will be there. People even watch clips from TV shows on TikTok, and they wait for the next part to be posted. So there's definitely that audience there that enjoy that type of video. I think me growing up on YouTube, I'm fine with watching longer videos anyway. It'll just be interesting if the people that are 13 now will enjoy it as much because they grew up with short form videos and stereotypically the shorter attention spans and stuff. So
yeah, that's what I was going to say. I find it interesting because we I mean, a lot of things in the media say everyone's got really short attention spans and they can only concentrate for X amount of seconds, But I totally agree with you. Like those types of videos that have several parts of them, but it's a really juicy story, I'm all over and I will
Yeah,
watch every single part. And I feel like, I mean, I'm 31, but there's younger people who are maybe like 15 now, and I think they would probably still watch that because it's an interesting thing. Like TV isn't going out of fashion, is it?
yeah,
So I think it's still content that's going to be consumed. I think what's going to be interesting about the TikTok one is, I don't know, I can't see me holding my phone in a
yeah,
portrait for an hour.
yeah, yeah.
I want to see how they handle that.
Yeah, because every now and again a video comes up where it is landscape, and
Yeah.
I do like turning it to watch it because most of the time it is slightly better quality than just filming it on your phone. So every now and again I do like that, and I think they're slowly bringing that, like pushing those types of videos, just so maybe people are used to watching landscape. So then
Yeah, true.
maybe down the line that'll be the norm.
You said in the agency there were quite a lot of like different teams. Like you had the analytics team and then the graphics team, and then you were obviously in the creative team. So now as a freelance content creator, how does that differ from agency life? Do you have to do all of those things?
So I guess it depends on what you want to focus on. Because some people are like social media managers, which in my opinion,
Mhm.
is more overarching, doing everything.
Mhm.
Whereas obviously some people specialize in only doing graphics or TikTok content or video content in general. So it does depend on what you sort of do as a freelancer. My personal like choice as being a freelancer is content creation, which is probably more focused on video. If they came to me and were like, we want a content creator that does sort of static images and stuff, I would be like, it's not really my sort of passion and what I'm actually
Mhm.
skilled at, so I'm probably not the best person for this.
Mhm.
Whereas if someone wants everything doing, a lot of the time the quality might go a bit down because you're doing everything. So some people might not be specialised in just video, so they've got a basic understanding of it, but that might not be their skill set.
Yeah.
And I think, luckily for me, when people say the term content creator, I think the majority of the time you do think of video anyway. That might just be like in my head, but I think if whenever I see that term, I always think it must be a video related role. And usually in the description, it does say creating content for Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. So it is a weird phrase because, and I think so many people don't know what content creator actually means
Yeah.
because technically any sort of form of content on social media is content creation.
Of course. Yeah.
Some people might be after photos, and that technically is content creation. So it's I think some brands and agencies might be a bit unsure of that because I'm not like against working full time if it's just at the moment I really want to do freelance stuff. And when I've applied to jobs in the past, the term was content creator, but what I think they're more after is like marketing assistant type roles, which is probably more like salesy and stuff.
Mhm.
Like a few of them wanted the product to be like the main focus, or getting someone to go to a store, which and like having prices on the screen, which isn't necessarily my type of content creation.
Yeah.
So I think it's always best to you yourself to know what content creator you want to be, but then also let them know whether that's in a portfolio what you can actually do.
Yeah.
Because
I think that's really important. You've got to know your niche
yeah,
because I mean, when you're starting out, try lots of different things, I
yeah,
think, to figure that out. But once you really understand what you're passionate about and what you're good at as well, that's what you should probably pursue. And like you were
yeah,
saying, you're more into that. It's kind of like personality led short form video content, and obviously like that's the type of jobs you want to get.
Yeah.
So talk me through it as a freelance working on a brief that's in that niche. What does that look like, and kind of what are all the little bits that you have to get involved with?
Yeah, so obviously some people, like some brands might only be after you for a week or two, whereas
Right.
sometimes they might want you as like a retainer sort of type role. So that does change it a bit. But like I'll take one sort of client I've had in the past. I don't have them anymore, but it was quite a new brand. I think they started last like September, and I think I sort of joined them in December time. So it was kind of like I was sort of understanding it with them.
Yeah.
That was slightly harder because it's one of those things where it's definitely easier for a well-known UK brand to grow on any social media account because, you know, let's just take Tesco, for example. Everyone pretty much in the UK knows them, so they could probably make anything on TikTok and to get some sort of views or likes. And I think if they made those personality entertaining videos, it would definitely do better than if some random person did the same exact video, just because they are a brand and stereotypically they shouldn't be doing that. They should just stick to advertising and the boring things, I guess you could say. So it is sometimes hard finding that balance between trying to get the brand's personality across, but also people need to understand that it is like a new brand, so you might not necessarily get the views and likes straight away, but you're laying the foundations for future videos or future personalities. And it is one of those things where, and people say it all the time, social media, especially organic social media, results really don't come overnight unless, it's very rare that a creator, for some reason, randomly pops up overnight. Most of the time they've made hundreds or thousands of videos before then.
Yeah.
And I think that can be similar for a brand. Duolingo, their first like 100, 200 videos are very much education based about their app. Whereas when they started to bring in those fun elements, I think they realised, these are doing better, so we can pivot our personality. So I think if you're definitely sort of starting doing those personality fun videos, it is best to be aware that it might change. Your first ever funny, humorous, trend-led video might not do well, but that might be for so many reasons other than it's not funny. Like, it could be a really great video, but just it doesn't get pushed out to people. So a lot of people,
I guess a lot of things affect that, like your SEO, time of day you posted it, and
and
all of that
sometimes it is
stuff.
literally just luck that more people might happen to be on the phone at that particular minute, so there's more chance of people seeing it. Like, there's so many sort of things that can go into that, with like what you mentioned, like SEO and stuff. So it is like one of those things that you do have to just keep going on with. Even if you feel like you might not be getting anywhere with it, you're eventually bound to find some sort of format that seems to work for your account. Because I've seen like some of the most stereotypically boring companies do well on TikTok and stuff, or on like like accountants and lawyers and stuff. So in like
That's so true.
and like looking at it, they shouldn't do that well because it is like just one of those sort of sides of business that doesn't have that fun factor, I guess. Whereas they've found a way for it to work for them. So if they can do it, pretty much any business can.
Yeah, I guess it's about like the value of the video, isn't it? And if you're providing value, then I mean, sweeping statement, it'll do well, but generally it'll do
Yeah,
better if there's value in it.
yeah, and
So
that could be so many other things. Like that could be humour, it could be
yeah.
Asian, it could be like there's so many different types of what you'd class as sort of value.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes people think that it has to be funny or
Yeah.
it has to be educational if you're a healthcare brand, where sometimes something that might work for a clothing brand could still work for your chocolate or food brand. Like it's you can always take things from other sort of companies and see what they're
Yeah.
doing and make
Yeah. And just
ideas.
twist it and make it fit for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess as a content creator then, does it cover idea generation, making the actual videos, you just saying about like researching different trends and different like competitors, I guess, and different businesses. And I guess to an element, like, do you track how well it does as well?
Yeah, so it does kind of cover everything
Mm,
from my personal experience. Um, like, I've had to do ideation, I've had to make the video, I've had to edit videos, um, I've had to every now and again take out sort of key analytics. So I'm quite sort of I enjoy being there from the exact start of the process to the end. I think the best thing you can do is be aware of the whole process, even if
hmm.
you might not like analytics, because quite a lot of people don't. Just being aware of like going on the analytics and seeing how it's laid out, seeing how how many sort of like what the gender sort of split between your audiences, because sometimes it can be sort of interesting because in your head you might think it's always going to be 18 to 25-year-old males, but then it happens to be 30-plus-year-old females that actually watch it the most. So it
Yeah.
can be quite interesting and open your eyes to like things that you might not actually think of.
Let's take a TikTok post. Like,
Yeah.
how do you know that that post has been successful?
Yeah, so this is something that I've always been like sort of passionate about, I guess. And at the agency, I was very sort of, I wouldn't say argumentative, but I was very sort of dedicated with, for TikTok specifically, this is how we should do it. And to me, the engagement rate is so much more important than views because technically, and this is sort of why I enjoy organic more, with paid social or putting any money behind a video, you can get it with enough money to any amount of views you want.
Hmm.
Whereas organically, if it's doing really well in views, there's probably a reason for that, and it's probably doing well in like terms of likes and comments as well because you've not put any money behind it. Um, so I'd say likes, comments, and shares are always going to be the most important. Like the most successful video I've ever made for a brand has, I think it's currently on like 1.7 million views and like 400,000 likes or something. So that sort of ratio between views and likes is clearly huge.
Mm.
Whereas I've seen some videos get 5 million views but 10,000 likes because they've just put money behind it, and that sort of if you like sent a screenshot to the client of 5 million views, they'll be like, "Oh, that's amazing." But then if you
Yeah.
say, "But it also only got 10,000 likes," it's not actually that good. Um, Whereas if you showed 500,000 views and it had 50,000 likes, that's obviously a better ratio. So to
Yeah.
me, it's always down to that engagement ratio.
No, that's really interesting. I actually saw something on TikTok earlier, or yesterday or whatever it was, um, that was like TikTok generally pushes your video out to like 300 people, and
Mm.
then if it does well on the engagement, it'll push it out to more people. So
Yeah.
that, if that's true, that totally makes sense with what you've just said.
Yeah, and I've seen like things like that quite a lot as well, and I think it does kind of make sense. Obviously, it might not be as sort of straightforward as that, but
Yeah.
um, that's why the videos that are to do with, it's very obvious that they want people to comment. Usually those videos have a lot of views and likes anyway because people are commenting, so obviously the algorithm must think it's doing well. Even if it's like engagement bait, but it's still clear that engagement is the thing that pushes a video to more people, rather than views, because again, if it's not getting likes, there's no point for TikTok to push it. So the views probably correlate to that, because it's very rare that you see a video organically that's got 10 million views but 100,000 likes. There's usually a correlation in there somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously you create the videos, but do you write the captions as well?
I really enjoy everything to do with it. Some people just want to post it and ignore it, whereas I saw quite a lot of success with those comments on other videos, comments on sort of videos that we've posted. A lot of the time I would come up with like the post copy as well, but in my opinion, that's really not as important as sort of the actual video or the comments and stuff. Like sometimes there's been like feedback about post copy, and I'm just like, people will glance over the post copy and they're not going to actually think into it unless it's funny or relatable. Then they might, but if it's a bad like sort of caption, no one will actually mind. But I really did enjoy posting as a brand on different videos, in our own videos, replying to people. I think a lot of brands don't do that. And like we did at the agency, there was a team that would respond to the more serious comments, like I need help with this, like I need help with something. Whereas I only sort of commented to the, if someone put like, this is an amazing video, admin needs a raise or something, I'd reply to that as an admin, like, yeah, I agree. Kind of that personality comes out so much in the comments. And obviously, I don't know how true it is, that might even push the video out more because it's technically more engagement.
Well, I was going to ask that. Does that have like a knock-on effect?
I don't actually know. Like, to me, it always has. Like in my head, it always has done. I don't know if your own comments count towards it, but I've definitely seen more people comment on videos later down the line once they've seen that we reply to them.
Okay.
So I definitely think, like, we posted one that was to do with someone was selling contact lenses that had been worn at a Taylor Swift concert, and it was like, I don't even know if it was real, but it was like a headline about that, and people in the comments were like, right, I'm going to buy them, and I think they were up for like $20,000 or something. And as like a brand, we were like, please don't do that. And I think people saw that and started commenting similar things, like tagging their friends saying, let's split this, and we'd reply to it sort of as we know that they're not going to, but it's that sort of playful personality that easily comes across.
I think it's always exciting as a viewer. You comment and then you get a comment back from the brand. I don't know why. I don't get why, but it is exciting when they reply, isn't it?
I think it depends as well how you do it, because when I was doing it, I wouldn't reply to every single comment. I'd reply to a lot of comments depending on how many there are, but I wouldn't always reply to every single comment, because on some videos it was getting too much, so there was you don't really have the energy anymore to constantly reply. But when like our first success started, I do have to admit that I was probably working an unhealthy amount of time. Like literally, if I'd woken up in the middle of the night, I'd go onto my work phone, comment, like reply to comments, comment on other videos, go back to sleep. The next morning when I woke up, I'd do the same, and it was genuinely like, I don't know, I probably work like double my actual contracted hours some weeks. Some people might not necessarily enjoy doing that. I didn't mind it just because I do. Obviously, I think most people get a kick out of seeing engagement and comments and likes coming on their videos that they've literally made and posted, because it's bad, but it's like a bit of validation, I guess. And I think when you're seeing that coming up on like your phone, you're more passionate about it anyway, because something that you've created has done well, so you're going to want to comment to people. And I think as we started to comment on other videos as well, not ours, we saw success there as well, with like some videos, some comments getting like 20,000 likes and stuff. So that sort of made it easier to just do it, because you know that you don't have to get sign off. Well, I don't know if we had to get sign off, but I actually never did for the comments. But luckily, when we said that at 10 p.m. every night, they didn't seem bothered because it had done well. So it is sort of quite good for me. I enjoy working like constantly, I guess, or at least being aware of things, checking your phone maybe like in the evening when you technically shouldn't. But obviously that works for me. It might not work for everyone. It's just finding out what works for you.
I wanted to ask as well about, just going back to captions, are hashtags dead?
So it's a very hard question, because some videos that come up on my like For You page have not even text. They don't have any caption at all. No hashtags, no actual writing. And some of them are on like 50,000 likes, and it's like, clearly it's not. It probably used to be more important, but I don't think it is as important now.
Okay.
I think a lot of the time it could be to do with text that's actually on screen, because sometimes when you're searching like best restaurants near me, or in a certain town or city, the videos that come to the top are the ones that say that on the video.
Yes, so, you're right.
Sometimes it might be in the comments, in like the caption and stuff anyway, but I think they've kind of switched to being more fully integrated into the video rather than I don't think I've ever searched hashtag something. Like you usually do just search the word or something, and it usually picks out that word out of like videos that have done well and stuff. So back to the question, I personally still use them, just in case it does help, but I don't think it will sort of limit it. So
there's no harm in using it.
Yeah, it either helps or it doesn't do anything. So there's no sort of negative effect.
Fair enough. And to help you sort of getting the work in as a freelancer, do you think like building a personal brand on LinkedIn helps? Because I know that that's how we connected, just off of LinkedIn. You also said someone else messaged you sort of randomly off of LinkedIn. Do you get many people doing that? Are you finding more people doing that?
Yeah, so it is actually only something that I've done recently. In the past, I've had an account on LinkedIn for so long, but I never really posted anything. I'd comment on other people's, usually people that I know, I'd comment on their posts or like the post or whatever. But since sort of when I was at the agency, I saw more people that are in the industry posting on there. So I was like, okay, they only post the positives of getting a following on there and stuff, and
like most social media.
Yeah. So a lot of the time they say like, growing my account to 1,000 followers has led to this many inquiries and stuff and cold messages. And obviously looking at that, it can seem like it's fake. But since I've started this, it's mainly in the past few months that I've fully started to post. I have had an increase in like connections and stuff, and people tagging me in sort of freelance roles that might come up here and there. And even like last Friday, someone messaged me out of the blue, which has led to doing work this week. So it's sort of like it. I think it's better sometimes than just going to email because it seems more personal. You can usually reply faster if you're just on the LinkedIn app and stuff. So it's definitely given me sort of a boost of people seeing me, whether that's they've just liked my post more or they've messaged me about sort of what I do, and they might not need me at that time, but maybe down the line they'll think about sort of me and get in touch then. But yeah, I've definitely seen an increase in something.
Nice. So to round this off, I would like to know your top tip for someone trying to break into content creation.
Honestly, I think just make content on your own account. It could be the shortest video you've ever thought of, or it could be a longer video for like YouTube. But I genuinely don't think I would be even on this podcast if I didn't just start making content. If you're a content creator, you may as well do that rather than wait for you to get a job or work somewhere. You may as well do that. You never know what will actually come of it, because I had no idea what would happen when I started, and here we are.
Here we are. Where can people follow you as well? Where can they find you?
So I'm on like LinkedIn. I do have like TikTok and Instagram, which is just Rob Creates Content.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been really interesting, and I've definitely learned a lot about content. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Rob. It was really interesting to hear all about how he approaches content creation, the inner workings of an agency, and his views on TikTok testing long-form video. Do you think this will work? Let me know in the poll attached to this episode if you're listening on Spotify. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd really appreciate it if you leave a review, rate and subscribe. If you want to learn more, follow us on TikTok and Instagram at the Get to Know Podcast, and I'll catch you the same time next week where I'm getting to know Sylvia, the fashion coordinator at MAG. Sylvia has a really exciting role that spans trend forecasting, input into seasonal designs, photo shoot creative direction and styling. If you're mad about fashion, you won't want to miss this one.